Good morning and welcome to our school Remembrance Day ceremony. Sunday is November 11th, Remembrance Day. This is a day we as Canadians will stop, remember, and honor the many men and women who lost their lives in war or on peacekeeping missions in war-torn lands. We take this time to remember those who gave their lives for our freedom and to honor those who have served and who continue to serve in the Canadian Forces. With these thoughts of remembrance and peace in mind, please rise for O Canada.
Please be seated, and thank you, Mrs. Melvin, for the lovely accompaniment. The audience is reminded that due to the solemn nature of our program, there is no applause at any time during the program, and please turn off all cell phones and electronics.
During this time of year, it is important to remember that the poppy has long been the flower of remembrance. It was originally a reminder of the blood-red flower which grew in the fields of Flanders, a place where many Canadians died. By wearing a poppy, we continue to show that we remember those who were killed in wars and in peacekeeping operations in which Canada has been involved. Thank you to the Canadian Legion for providing poppies to all the students.
To remind us of the lives lost in Flanders, we would now like to present a well-known poem by a Canadian soldier of the First World War, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. He wrote the poem In Flanders Fields after working in a military hospital during the Battle of Ypres, where many Canadians died. We would now like to call on Ms. Ferguson's and Ms. Dempster's grade 4 class to perform this poem. Thank you, students, for that inspiring rendition. We would now like you to turn your attention to the presentation of Little Red Poppy.
Would everyone please stand? During the Remembrance Day ceremony, we have a minute of silence in memory of the victims of war and the Declaration of Peace. We will now listen to the last post as performed by a former annual Gaetz student, Alex D. Hahn. This will be followed by a minute of silence and conclude with the playing of Reveille.
Please be seated. Thank you, Alex. At this time, we would now like to call on those students chosen to represent the classes to come forward and pay their respects by placing a small wreath at the cross. Thank you, Mrs. Melnick, for the wonderful musical accompaniment. We would now like to call on Second Lieutenant Daviduck of the 41 Signal Regiment out of Red Deer to share some thoughts with us.
Hello everyone. First of all, can everyone hear me all right? Yes. Perfect. So, as mentioned by the young sir here, I am Second Lieutenant Daviduck out of Red Deer 41 Signal Squadron, and I'm here to speak to you a little bit about my experience and some stories from the past in order to honor our veterans. So to start, I'd first like to have someone who could answer my question. Just raise your hand. What is a veteran to you guys? You there, young sir with your... I'll give you this. Don't worry, it's fine. Go there.
Someone who helps someone get better or fixes a pet.
Oh, that's a veterinarian. We're looking for a veteran.
Someone who helps someone get healthy again or if they get hurt.
Okay. Anyone else?
A general?
Closer. Closer.
Someone who fought in the war.
Yes, so as the young man there said, it is someone who previously fought in the war for our country or is currently a uniformed personnel, such as myself, who is currently serving our country. So when you look back into the past, I hope this gives you some context as to what we're thinking about. So just remember that people went overseas and all over abroad for our country, and some of them did not return. And some of these men and women were in uniform, such as myself. So, not a problem, don't worry. And every year, we honor these men and women during Veterans Week. We do it by recognizing the work they did or are still doing, whether it's keeping us safe at home or abroad, during emergencies such as floods or forest fires, or bringing peace to places in the world where people are fighting. So now I would like to go a bit further into some stories about the past year. And some of them you may actually know from childhood stories made by some people who previously served for our country. So on Remembrance Day, we think of the veterans who fought in wars. Some of them were wounded and some of them did pass away. We remember all of them and what they did and gave up to keep us safe. This year is a very special year. This year celebrates the 100-year anniversary of the end of the First World War, the armistice. This happened in 1918. So as you can imagine, 100 years ago, that's a very long time ago. We're currently in 2018, children. So this happened in a time before some of your grandparents were even alive. It's a very long time ago. In fact, it was so long ago that there was very few cars and trucks. People still used horses to pull wagons and guns and brought supplies to the soldiers on the front lines. Now, you may not know very much about the First World War. As mentioned, it was so long ago, but there's some interesting facts that I would like to share specifically for you. When the Canadians departed overseas, they actually brought 2 bears with them overseas to Europe. And yes, I know there's some confused looks. I literally mean bears, such as the one on my patch right here. The first one was in fact a real bear. She was just a cub when a soldier called Major Harry Colburn brought her from a hunter before he left home. Major Colburn named the little bear after his hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Can you guess the bear's name? That's correct. So Winnie was the bear's name, and he took Winnie to England, where he kept her for good luck. But sadly, the good Major Colburn knew that the battlefield was no place for a bear. So when his unit left to fight in France, he gave Winnie to the London Zoo. And then a little boy who used to come to the zoo and visit Winnie, he liked her so much he named his own teddy bear Winnie. This is the beginning of a familiar novel for many of you and a TV show. This boy's father wrote a book, and as you can imagine, it is Winnie the Pooh. The second bear that left across seas was not a real bear. He was a stuffed bear named Teddy. He belonged to a little girl named Aileen. Aileen's dad was a soldier in the First World War. When he left home, Aileen missed him very much. She knew he was facing a lot of danger and she wanted to help protect him. So she wrapped up Teddy and sent him to war. Aileen's dad, Lieutenant Lawrence Browning Rogers, carried Teddy in his pocket. He was a medic. This is a dangerous job. His job was to bandage up soldiers when they got wounded in fighting. Sadly, he never made it home. Other soldiers sent Teddy home, though, and Aileen's family put him away in a briefcase, along with some of his personal belongings. She thought other people should know about him, so she gave him to the Canadian War Museum. He is still there to this day. Today, this teddy bear reminds everyone who sees him of the brave veterans who fought and never came home from the First World War and all the others that followed. He reminds us that those veterans and families who love them and miss them for the rest of their lives. You will be able to get a copy of this novel from the local library. It is called A Bear in War. On Remembrance Day, I hope you'll think about Winnie and about Teddy too, the brave little bear who went to war in a soldier's pocket. I also hope that when you see men and women in uniform, you think about all of Canada's veterans and how brave they were. We must never forget them. And I must personally thank the staff of the school and you children for allowing me to come and speak for you. You've all been very professional during this ceremony. Thank you very much. I'll turn the microphone over to the young sir here.
Thank you, Second Lieutenant Davida. Armistice was called on the 11th of November 1918. This signaled the end of the First World War. Although this is a very long time ago, it is still important to remember the sacrifices soldiers have made in the name of freedom throughout our history. Here to share a better world is our school choir.
On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns were silenced and the great war. At that time, we stopped and paused to remember the sacrifices made so that we could live in freedom. Across the land of Remembrance Day, ceremonies like ours will end with these words.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
A special thank you to our speakers, performers, Alex D. Hod, Second Lieutenant Daviduck, Miss Della Rustin, and everyone who made this program possible. We will presently be ending our celebration with the singing of God Save the Queen. Please remain standing until our dignitaries and guests have exited the hall. Afterwards, you are welcome to look throughout the school for Remembrance Day art created by our students. Thank you for sharing in our ceremony. Please stand.